What's up, Motocross Action? I'm Josh Mosman, and today we have the 2021.5 KTM Factory Edition 450SXF. We're riding on some different terrain here in the high desert to test out this new bike. The Factory Edition was created to give the race team an option to upgrade their bikes, the major structural things before the season comes, and all they have to do is order at least 400 units to get the bike homologated to make it legal for racing in AMA, Supercross, and Motocross. Some years, the Factory Edition gets all kinds of upgrades because the race team wanted something specific on their bike, or it was a precursor, kind of a pre-show of what the upcoming year is going to have. Other years, not so much. They just throw on a few goodie parts, make them look a little different, up the price tag as well. So for 2021, the main structural part of the motorcycle for the KTM Factory Edition is basically the same as it was for the 2021 KTM 450. It does have the Akrapovic muffler. It comes with KTM's factory power parts wheels. It comes with KTM's factory split triple clamps, the Red Bull race team graphics, the gripper seat cover, and some extra frame guards to help with gripping the bike. But there is one major upgrade that KTM did to their 2021.5 Factory Edition 450SXF, and that was that they added this special new Bluetooth connectivity device that connects your bike to your cell phone via a KTM app to help you adjust the power character and also give you some guidance on suspension settings. Before we dive into all the details about the Bluetooth connectivity device, I want to touch on the suspension. So with the KTM Factory Edition, they're running the exact same internals, all the same settings that the KTM 2021 model 450 comes with, but there is one change. They recommend a 10.9 bar on the air pressure instead of 10.7 bar. So with this change on the sticker that tells us the recommended stock air pressure, it made us think, is there something done to the internals? When KTM gave us the bike, they told us that the suspension settings were exactly the same. We were still a little skeptical. The air pressure recommended for stock settings was 0.2 of a bar higher, so the stock pressure for the KTM 450 is 10.7 bar, recommended for the Factory Edition is 10.9 bar. That helped raise an eyebrow for us, and although they told us the settings were the same, we still had to figure it out for ourselves. MXA Wrecking Crew is always skeptical when we're getting a new bike. Even if the manufacturer tells us that the settings are exactly the same, we have to take it to the track and really figure it out for ourselves. Our initial impressions about the exact WP air forks were horrible. The bike had 1 hour on it to break in before the KTM gave it to us, and after the first few motos, we hated the forks. They were too harsh, too stiff, and we thought for sure they would have changed the settings. After breaking the bikes in, we got a little over 3 hours on them now, and the forks are back to normal, and we do realize that the settings are the same. The only reason for the change in the recommended air pressure is the split triple clamps. So with the split triple clamps, they're able to get a better grip on the fork tubes, allowing for the suspension to work a little bit better and actually give you a little more of a planted feel coming into the corners. With that, KTM decided, hey, some of our guys like a little more air pressure with the triple clamps being the way that they are, so they upped it from 10.7 to 10.9 as the recommended setting. As for the rest of the suspension, once the bike was all the way broke in, the bike handled exactly like the KTM 450 2021 model, and so far we like it. Our first impressions of the KTM connectivity unit that goes onto the handlebar had a huge question mark. Yes, we understand that you can tune the engine because Yamaha's been doing it for years with their Yamaha Power Tuner app, but why would there be suspension worked into this new smartphone app? Well, we got some answers finally. The engine tuning is very similar to what Yamaha has done, where it allows you to tune engine braking, traction control, throttle response, and stuff like that. With the suspension, it doesn't allow you to tune anything from your cell phone, and that's totally understandable. We don't expect motorcycle suspension to be adjusted by your cell phone for many years, but they still added a suspension segment into the KTM smartphone app that we had to check it out. What it is basically is a guidance tool. So you type in your weight, you type in the track conditions you're riding, your skill level, and it'll tell you the recommended sag, the recommended free sag, static sag. So what it is basically a guidance tool, and it gives you a direction to go towards if you're new to suspension, or if you're not really understanding what the sag does or what the compression clickers do or the rebound clickers do. Believe me, it's confusing. I get get confused still to this day, and I'm a motocross action test rider, so for the average rider that isn't up to date with the latest suspension knowledge, the new KTM app will give you a direction to go, and it'll help make things a lot more simple for you to set up your new KTM. So now let's dive into the more exciting part of the My KTM smartphone app, the engine settings. Like the suspension setting, the engine tuner on the My KTM app gives you a range of track conditions to choose from that'll help give you a base setting for what KTM recommends. It gives you dry conditions, wet conditions, sandy conditions, hard pack conditions, and gravel conditions. And then it gives you advanced settings from there where you can adjust the throttle response, traction control, engine braking, and launch control. One major difference between the Yamaha Power Tuner app and the My KTM connectivity unit is that the Yamaha app connects via Wi-Fi, where the KTM unit connects via Bluetooth. So a little bit different connectivity there from your smartphone to your motorcycle. Additionally, I like the Yamaha that you don't have to have an ugly bar pad connect from your phone to your bike, where KTM you do have to run the big ugly handlebar pad. We asked KTM, are we allowed to take the handlebar pad off? Can we move the ECU unit that wirelessly transfers our maps from our smartphone to the motorcycle, the little black box that goes underneath the handlebar pad? They said that you can move it, but wherever you move it, it has to lay flat to receive the maps from your smartphone to the motorcycle. So it's a little finicky, and it sounds like if you did want to move it, you couldn't just stick it behind the number plate or anywhere simple. It would have to be flat wherever you found the spot to put it. Two words I would use to describe the KTM app is dummy proof. You don't have to be an engine tuner to adjust the mapping on your KTM 450 Factory Edition. You simply just slide the bar across on your smartphone app, and it's a fairly simple process. You can see on the bar graph where your power is going to be, and easy to adjust in between motos. As for connecting to your motorcycle, the initial setup process, you have to sign in, you have to make an account specific to KTM, connect to your motorcycle, connect via Bluetooth. If you're not well versed in iPhone technology and you don't connect via Bluetooth very often, it could take a couple minutes to learn, but if you're used to connecting your iPhone via Bluetooth to your stereo or other devices, it should be pretty simple. As for uploading maps into your KTM Factory Edition, it's a fairly simple process. As I said, creating the map is easy, and then uploading the map to your motorcycle only takes about 15 seconds. You just have to make sure that the green light is on your handlebar pad. Then you just click save and upload map. It takes about 15 seconds, and you'll hear the fuel pump click on, kind of like you do if you just tap the electric starter button. That means that the map is uploading into your motorcycle. Then the app will give you a green arrow telling you that your new map is now in the motorcycle. From there, you have to keep the map in map 1 to use the custom map, where map 2 can never be changed. So that makes it good for comparing, and also good if you ever mess with your app before you go out for a race, you get on the track and you don't like it, you can easily click over to map 2, and you'll have the standard aggressive map that comes stock on the KTM Factory Edition. Additionally, traction control. We thought when we were adjusting traction control in the app that it was actually messing with it, but you have to click the traction control button on the unit that goes onto the handlebar. So if you don't have the traction control button clicked on your handlebar switch, you won't be adjusting traction control in the app. So let's dive into the more exciting part of the video. How did the Bluetooth connectivity unit work for the MXA Wrecking Crew on the track? The KTM Factory Edition, we wanted to spend a little more time on it. We took the bikes up to the high desert to ride some rough, new terrain, and riding on some really slick stuff where traction control was super important. Then the next day, we took the bikes out to Glen Helen to ride on a more watered, prepped, rough track because we wanted to compare the KTM Factory Edition on a track that we ride all the time. Our first mission for testing the KTM Factory Edition 450 was to check and see how much adjustability and how wide the range was for the new Bluetooth connectivity unit. We detuned it, we turned everything down as far as we could to see how slow we can make the motorcycle, and then we turned everything up, turned throttle response up, turned engine braking down, and made it as aggressive as we could to see how wide the range was and how big the spectrum was that the app gave us. MXA Wrecking Crew was very surprised actually with the adjustability and kind of the full spectrum that the KTM Bluetooth app gives you. It can detune the bike a ton. We messed with traction control, throttle response, engine braking, and it completely changed the motorcycle. And some of our test riders were saying it almost felt like a 350 or a really fast 250 because it was detuned so much. Then when we turned it all the way aggressive, it wasn't like a race 450 or like something that Twisted Development would give us, but it did make the bike way more aggressive than it was when it was detuned, and a little bit more aggressive than it was when we got it stock. So the Bluetooth app can totally detune the KTM 450SXF, make it a lot slower, a lot easier for beginners to ride, and also a lot easier to ride on the hard pack stuff that we shot this video on, and also on the challenging slick sections of Glen Helen or in the muddy corners where you're really searching for traction. As for the aggressive side of the Bluetooth connectivity unit, yes, it does make the KTM 450 more aggressive, but no, it's not going to wheelie out of your hands, but it does give you a broad spectrum and give you a little more pep in the step from the stock maps. Overall, MXA Wrecking Crew's first impressions about the MyKTM smartphone Bluetooth app that connects to your 450 Factory Edition, we like it. It's dummy proof, it's easy to use, simple, and it's pretty quick. We can detune the bike a lot to give you more traction on the slick stuff, or you can make it a little more exciting by upping the throttle response, taking away some of that engine braking to help you come into corners a little easier. As for the rest of the bike, the KTM Factory Edition has the same suspension settings as I mentioned. There wasn't a whole lot to figure out there once we broke the forks in, but you do need to be warned. It takes hours to break your forks in. It doesn't take 30 minutes. It's not just one ride. For us, it really started working better around the 2.5 hour mark. We do know that KTMs get better and better up until about the 6 hour mark, and that's when we think that they're fully broke in. Akrapovic muffler is the only thing that really changes the power character on the KTM 450, and personally, I tested it back to back with the FMF muffler that comes on the Rockstar Edition Husqvarna 450, and I actually like the Rockstar Edition's FMF muffler better than I like the Akrapovic muffler. So KTM's only offering the muffler. They're still giving us the stock header that comes on the 2021 model, so it's not a full Akrapovic system, and with that, it doesn't work as well as a full system would work either. The power was smooth and linear, where we actually took the Husqvarna's FMF muffler off and put it on our KTM, and it woke the power up a lot. Nothing that's going to rip your arms off, but it did give it a little more perk coming out of the corners and made it a little more exciting to ride. We do got to say again, there aren't any major structural upgrades to this bike besides the Bluetooth connectivity unit on the handlebar. Something important to note, you can't buy this unit as of right now and put it on your 2021 KTM 450. If you want the Bluetooth connectivity unit, you need to buy a brand new KTM Factory Edition or Husqvarna Rockstar Edition 450 that comes with a connectivity unit. All right, now I want to dive into the details of each individual aspect of the engine tuning side of the app. As for throttle response, turning it all the way down definitely mellows out the power. Turning it all the way up gives it a lot more power and a lot more wheel spin. MXA test riders actually liked turning the throttle response down because it made the bike easier to ride and made us less tired over a longer moto. As for the engine braking, the KTM 450s already have very little engine braking in general. Modern motorcycles have learned to go less with engine braking because it allows the chassis to work better, suspension to work better, and overall just be a smoother motorcycle to ride. With the engine braking turned all the way up, we really didn't notice a difference. But when you turn the engine braking all the way down, it's actually pretty wild to see how much more free the bike comes into the corners and how much faster you come in to the corners as well. So as for the traction control aspect of the KTM app, we were super impressed with this as well, although we were very confused. First few times I tried to mess with traction control, I would mess with it on the app, turn it up, turn it down, upload the app to the motorcycle and go ride, but I never clicked the TC button on the map switch that comes stock on KTM handlebars. Since I never clicked the TC button, the changes that I made on the app never actually made it onto the motorcycle. You have to make sure to press TC on the map switch on the handlebars to get that traction control to work while you're riding. Messing with traction control, it was a huge difference, and actually a much bigger difference than we've ever felt before on any stock KTM or Husqvarna. It doesn't really do a whole lot. For me, pro level rider, I don't use it very often, and even if the track's very slick, I choose to just monitor the rear wheel traction with my right hand, my throttle hand. But the new traction control setting on this MyKTM app gives a huge range of adjustability and really detunes the rear end. So it does stop the rear wheel from spinning, but it doesn't stop the front wheel from lifting off the ground. And I was actually making mistakes because I had so much traction in the rear wheel that I actually had to let off the gas a little bit so I wouldn't wheelie going up the hills. As always, these are just the first impressions that the MXA Wrecking Crew has on this new model. The Bluetooth connectivity unit is brand new to us. We only have 2 days on it. We got a lot more time to spend before we write the full in-depth article with all the details about this bike, which will be seen on the pages of Motocross Action Magazine very soon. So to see that full story, make sure you subscribe to Motocross Action Magazine. You can check us out on motocrossactionmag.com. And for more videos, be be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with our latest uploads. And before you go, click the video thumbnails now to see some of our most recent videos.